question is always, were the Bengals so focused on building for Joe Burrow with skill position players that they didn't build well enough with the offensive line? They did not do enough with scheme and with personnel to protect him. Dan Pitcher is their offensive coordinator with the Bengals. He said, quote, "We have special skill players." This is what he said to the Cincinnati Enquirer. "We want to accentuate those skill players. We want to try and do things. How do we accentuate their skill set? How do we do it in a way in which we're limiting the amount of the times that Joe's potentially going to get hit? There's no one decision that solves it. Everything costs something." So we constantly think about these things. And again, I hate that we're in the spot that we're in. You always evaluate and reevaluate and do it over and over again. But we can only make the decisions in the moment that give us a chance to win. So, this is the old, hey, skill position players, we'd like to get you paid, but if we pay all of you, we don't have the money left over. We don't have the money left over to build a top-level offensive line. Now, if you look back 3 years or so ago, right, that year, or how many, was it 4 years ago that they went to the Super Bowl? That was a year in which that this coaching staff, front office called into question, and they rebuilt the offensive line. And I kind of told people they did. But it wasn't a good enough answer for people. And then, they started slow and end up closing hot and getting to a Super Bowl. They went back and got to an AFC Championship game. And only now it's like a reoccurring theme that Joe Burrow's getting hit so much he's the new Andrew Luck. I would tell you this, that I don't know enough about what they did financially, what they did with their offensive line. I know that we have a tendency to overreact some because it's a turf toe injury. And there was also the video against the Cincinnati Bengals where he just got obliterated as he released the football. And that one's a jarring one, hard one to get out of your brain when you're thinking about Joe Burrow. And then you think about the injuries and how they've stacked up over the years and how many injuries he's had, and you're like, man, this guy's always hurt. But I think there's three different factions. One, there's the ownership of Joe Burrow holds the ball a long time. That's his style. He's got some Ben Roethlisberger to him where he has brass cojones, and he'll stand in there and take a hit because he wants to deliver the football. So some of that is your quarterback holds the ball a little bit longer. Some of it is probably in their scheme. How is it that he's getting hit that much? And you talk about accentuating the positives, right? You're putting guys out into routes and not leaving enough guys in to have max protect. And maybe that's also the bravado of Joe Burrow. Like, I don't care. Just get guys open. I'll find them open. I don't care if I get hit now and again, even though those hits seem to be crushing in terms of the ferocity of blows. But the last part is probably the most important thing, which is how you're building a team. You're going to have to sacrifice something. Something. Especially when you have either a salary cap or limitations on funds. And I can draw the direct parallel to my team, to college football teams, to college basketball teams, because they're dealing with, hey, at some point, we just don't have any money. So you got to be judicious with it. I said this about Alabama football, right? Alabama football, like their starting quarterback, he's played well since, playing okay against Florida State. He was under a lot of pressure against Florida State, but my guess is they didn't go out and pay a couple $1 million. You had a guy in-house, it's his third year. He's super happy to be the quarterback at Alabama. I don't think he's making $1 million. Now, he's probably making, I don't know, 500, 750 or whatever. And then they'll keep, if he's good enough, they'll keep him to stay, and he wants to be there, wants to be the quarterback of the Tide, unless, he wants to go elsewhere and cash in. Who knows if he can cash in? But you do that because, if you have, let's say conservatively, Alabama has $20 million. If you spend $5 million on a quarterback, well, there's going to be a shortfall somewhere. Our scale is different, but there's going to be a shortfall somewhere. We talk about this in the NBA, how the NBA has gone from 3 stars to 2 stars Because if you have 3 stars, you can't really have a team around them. If you have 2 stars, you can do pretty well. If you have 1 star, you can have an ensemble cast, which is really, really, really good. But you got to manage those salaries. NFL's no different. You have a salary cap. There's a limit to what you can spend. And if you spend more money than anybody on a wide receiver, you spend a ton of money on a quarterback, you spend a lot of money on a secondary wide receiver, you spend a ton of money even for a 1-year deal on your best pass rusher, something's got to give. And there's things you can go cheap on. You could even use the home building analogy. Right? You're on a budget. You know you're going to go over that budget, but how much are you going to go over that budget? With flooring, like there's a floor that I put into a couple different houses, and it's man-made wood. You're like, how's it man-made wood? I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I know that generally you go back 15 years ago, and I never would have either bought a house or in a house put in anything other than traditional hardwood floors. But 1, kind of like the field. 2, kind of like how much it costs, and I like how it looks. But what am I giving up? I'm giving up saying these are real hardwood floors. Something's got to give. You get a budget on you're redoing your kitchen. Do you use quartz for countertops? Do you use marble for countertops? Marble is great. It's really expensive. And does it make that much difference in the quartz? Because if you do, then, all right, something's got to give, right? How big's the hood on the stove, and what level of appliance you use? You only have a set budget, and that's where the Bengals are. The Bengals forever have been told that they're cheap, and maybe they have been on some ancillary things, but they've paid their players, especially their star players, to stay. They like to keep their own. But in terms of building an offensive line and building a system that protects their most prized asset, it seems like they failed. But there's also some accountability there for Joe Burrow. And my guess is that the reason that there's a shortfall there is because they spent money not just, on elite wide receiver, but the secondary wide receiver. And something's got to give.